So one of the hardest things, Chris, for pro athletes is when you're a dominant player, you're not quite as dominant, and understanding and buying into that. There's the old Carmelo Anthony laughed at the suggestion 4 years ago that he could come off the bench, and that's kind of what he was. Westbrook's going through that now. Now, the difference is LeBron is still great. But let me talk about that in terms of power, not LeBron's game. Because I think LeBron knows he can't give you 44 minutes a night. He's going to miss 15 games. That knee, hit lower extremity injuries. These things are happening now. LeBron's a smart cat. But power is different. So he's unhappy. His guys clutch. They want to move at the All-Star break. And Jeannie Buss is like, hey, I moved off Shaq. We wanted Buddy Hield. It was a done deal. You wanted Westbrook. I own the team. This is your mess. Get it done. And they leak some stuff to let it be known to people like me. I mean, you're more tied than me, but let guys like me, a conduit to the public, I'm not moving. LeBron, this was your mess. And for the first time ever, LeBron and Clutch, they leak stuff to say, we didn't say that. And I thought, now that was symbolic. They got pushback, right? Pat Riley pushed back a little. They bolted. This was really interesting to me, Chris, is that the Lakers went public, put LeBron's name on it. He didn't like it. And the media overwhelmingly, myself included, said, it's L.A. You're missing 20 games a year. It is your mess. Bill Plaschke, people in the L.A. media, I think it's time to trade him. And I think it was a little comeuppance for LeBron. It was a, whoa. This isn't Ohio. This market moves off. I mean, Chris, right now, Justin Herbert's the 18th biggest star in town. Lincoln Riley now is at USC. So my takeaway, I'm long-winded here, but it was a really interesting theater to watch. And I feel like LeBron, for the first time, got a little blowback, and the Lakers don't feel like budging, and they won't.
Yeah, and where it's different for LeBron than when he was in Miami or his time in Cleveland is that he didn't give himself the leverage with the player option. Like the player option was always, kind of the gun he had on his hip that he could pull at any time and say, all right, you do what I say or else I opt out and leave. Now, he is eligible for an extension. He can decide not to sign that this summer. That would be a blow for the Lakers, but he can't go anywhere till after the 2023 season. So if the Lakers, who I think, by the way, smartly looked at the landscape of this trade deadline, did not see a move that would make them measurably better and realized that if they go into this offseason with their whatever's left of their draft capital intact, they can deal the 2027 pick, the 2029 pick. Now, we can have a separate argument about the insanity of a team that could be in the toilet in a few years, trading a 2027 or a 2029 pick, but that does give them real capital, a real chance. You can then turn around and do that Talen Horton-Tucker, Kendrick Nunn poo-poo platter that they were dangling across the league, and add something to it, add like a sweetener to it. And that makes sense. So, what the Lakers did at the deadline was effectively wave the white flag on this season. Even before the AD injury, they said, look, it's not going to happen this year. What we might be able to do is if somebody big becomes available, we might be able to throw 2 unprotected future first-round picks into the mix. And those picks, given the state of the Lakers, if I'm a team, and let's just throw the hypothetical, even though he's a free agent of Bradley Beal, right? If I'm the Wizards and I'm looking around going, all right, what's my best offer here? Late 2020s Laker picks, that could be gold. That could be real capital to have in a trade. So I think what they did was smart. LeBron didn't like it. He created it. I to this day, I don't believe Rob Pelinka thought it was a good idea or would have given total control and autonomy that he would have done the Westbrook trade over the Hield trade. They made this mess, LeBron and company, and now the Lakers are going to, for the rest of this season, make them kind of deal with it.
Joy Taylor and I got into this debate. I said, twice LeBron has ditched Ohio for the more glamorous aqua water of Miami and L.A. And now they've got these really good young players. Darius Garland's been sensational. They made a nice move to get Jared Allen, LeVert. They've got Sexton was hurt, but he averaged like 23, 24 last year. You start looking at their young players, and you're like, man, this is an ascending team. They're like fun. And I said to Joy, I said, I'm Dan Gilbert. I'm that GM. When LeBron came out and said, hey, I haven't closed the door on Cleveland. And I said, who said it was open? I do not believe, their ratings, Chris, are the second highest locally in the league. This city loves these young players. Like, if LeBron's camp call said, I'll come back, I'm like, how many times can you get burned? I don't believe they'd make a move. Like, I think the door's closed. I think Cleveland, next to the Warriors, they are the most watched local basketball team professionally in America. I don't think they take LeBron's calls. Again, I sound like a loon, but what do you make of it?
If they didn't, they are crazy. Unequivocally crazy. This is that like this. So I experienced this, right? Living in Boston, I cover a lot of the Celtics games. What was it? The 18 playoffs when they had that magical run. Gordon Hayward goes down in his first year, 17 playoffs, I think it was. Gordon Hayward goes down. They rattle off 18 wins in a row, whatever it was after the injury. Kyrie Irving goes down, and Terry Rozier, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, teenagers, early 20-somethings, push the Cavaliers to 7 games in the conference finals. And everybody's like, wow, this young team is great. It's going to be great for a long time. That was the honeymoon year. That's what Cleveland's in right now. The Cleveland Cavaliers and the Charlotte Hornets are in the honeymoon year where they can do no wrong. If they get bounced in 4 games in the playoffs, nobody will care because, wow, wasn't that team fun to watch? Everybody's watching. In year 2, expectations are ratcheted up. So great year this year, Darius Garland, Evan Mobley, Jared Allen. Do it and then some next year. You better get to the second round of the playoffs next year. You better get to the conference finals. And that's hard to do. And it's going to be hard to do for the next 3 or 4 years, as long as Milwaukee's at the top, Philadelphia is at the top, Brooklyn is dynamic. Look, I love all those Cavs you mentioned. I wouldn't put them as favorites to beat any of the teams that I just mentioned. Now, you add LeBron into that mix, even with all the baggage he brings with him, all the drama he brings with him, you become a championship contender, where the Cavs have a different level of power here is that they're not the cellar dwellers they were back when LeBron came back the first time. They can dictate some of the terms that LeBron James comes back on. In a way, he needs them more than they need him in that situation, but they do need him. They do, because you go into next year and this team goes on like a 4 or 5 game losing streak, and all of a sudden it's, maybe Garland was kind of a fluke. Maybe he wasn't that good. Maybe Jared Allen and Evan Mobley don't work together. Maybe 2 7-footer doesn't work. Maybe this Lowry marketing experiment, which I can't believe has actually worked for them this year, maybe it's not good to have 3 7-footers basically on your front line. That's when the criticism comes in. So, it's perfume and roses around the Cavaliers right now. It's all good with what Cleveland's doing right now. But next year, if they don't make that jump, the criticism will come. And if you have an opportunity, whether it's via trade next season, which I'd love to see them do, I'd love to see them try to package Colin Sexton, draft capital, Lowry marketing, whatever it is, to try to extract LeBron from LA. But if it's next season or after that, they better aggressively pursue LeBron James. To me, it's basketball malpractice if they don't aggressively pursue LeBron James.
So I'll throw this out to you. So the Lakers brand could withstand trading LeBron. And if Cleveland was a suitor, you say, okay, we want Evan Mobley, played at USC. We're taking him. At that point, if you have Garland, Jared Allen, you have size with Garland's a guard, but you have size with Jared Allen. I want Evan Mobley, your next 3 number 1 picks. I throw somebody else in and make it I can make it salary wise. I'd have to make it a 3-team deal. I'd have to get some veteran, right? Hope maybe an expiring contract, whatever it is. But my takeaway is, I think the Lakers would deal him. Back to our initial LeBron story. I don't think this city is desperate. I don't think the Lakers, I heard this years ago about Peyton Manning. Jim Irsay loved him. But he's like, when you get a quarterback as big as Peyton or Favre or Brady, they take the franchise from you. Like Jeannie Buss, there's a sense, and the contacts I have with the Lakers, they're not going to do that. They're not giving LeBron this franchise. And I do think if you gave them Mobley, multiple picks, some other high-end player.
That'd be a deal breaker. No way are they getting Evan Mobley.
Okay, because to me, that's where I'd make the deal.
Yeah, but I wouldn't make the deal if I was Cleveland, if I'm asked to throw Evan Mobley at the mix. I mean, Evan Mobley, like, you can see kind of the
25 a game by next year.
Say what?
I think he could be a 25 a game player by
like
next year.
He's AD. Like he's the second coming of AD, and maybe in a weird way, potentially a little bit better defensively. I mean, his contest numbers. No, you get kind of in the weeds with advanced stats sometimes, but the shots he contests on the perimeter for a 7-footer are wild. Like he gets to everything defensively and changes shots from everywhere on the floor. I wouldn't do that. I would say to the Lakers, like, you can get a couple of first-round draft picks, sure. Colin Sexton's only, 23 years old, has been a 20-point-per-game scorer. Lauri Markkanen is just filler. Takes some.
Yeah.
Look, it's not Colin. It's not good. But, the Lakers can't just, put LeBron out there on the trade block. I mean, I guess they could, but there's only a finite number of teams he's really going to accept a deal to. Like, Denver would 100% make a run at him if the Lakers tried to deal him. But outside of a couple of teams, they're not going to trade for LeBron because of everything that kind of comes with LeBron. Cleveland, they would, or at least you think they would, and it would make sense for both sides. But you can't. Evan Mobley, if I'm Kobe Altman, I hang up the phone. I don't even text back. I don't reply to the email. Are they still faxing nowadays? I don't send a fax back. Nothing. I do nothing that involves Evan Mobley playing for another team.
Well, it's so funny. So 2 years ago, it was his last year at USC. Did he stay at USC 1 or 2 years? Was it 1 year? It was around Christmas or January. It was about the midway point of the college basketball season. And I run into Andy Enfield at the Manhattan Beach Workout Club. And I had seen them play once. I said, boy, Mobley's good. And he goes, he's getting better faster than any player I've ever been connected with. He said, and Andy said this, he goes, he is going to be a 10-time All-Star in the NBA. He goes, Colin, in the last 6 months, he's gone from late first, middle first to top 5 pick. So to me, if I'm the Lakers, I think Mobley is, I'm glad, I've watched him 6 to 7 times this year with the Cavs. I think he is unbelievable. I think he's a sensation. He's going to win Rookie of the Year, right? We know that.
Yeah, I mean, Rookie of the Year voting is always weird because people might look at Cade Cunningham's stats on that awful Pistons team and say, but I'm a Mobley guy at this point. 20 games to go. I'd vote for Mobley.
1 year from now, the trading deadline is just passed because I think we both believe the Lakers are going to bring this circus pretty much back at the beginning of next year. But then, the Westbrook contract, now it's expiring. That's very attractive, right? Let's say we're a day or two after the NBA trade deadline. Lakers next year at this time. What do you think the roster, best guess, kind of looks like?
Well, they'll move off Westbrook before the end of next season. Like, way, somehow they'll find a way to make it work. Who takes him and what you have to do. Like, you're going to have to clean the books of somebody to get off Westbrook's contract. Like, you're going to have to take bad contracts back in return. That's why I always believed there was a lot of fire to the talks with the Knicks. Like, it's not just smoke there. Like, the Knicks badly need an injection of something, have had point guard problems that go back like decades at this point, and they've got some crappy contracts there. So you can take Evan Fournier off their books. You can take what's left of Kemba Walker off their books. You can take Alec Burks off their books, and maybe they'll take Westbrook without any draft capital being attached to it. So that to me is one of the more likely things where they make a deal, and let's just say it is New York, and they see if the pieces like a Fournier just being a spot-up shooter, like a Kemba Walker having far less ball handling responsibilities on him, Alec Burks doing what he does. I can see a scenario like that playing out. Now, will it make them measurably better? It doesn't make their defense better. Like, that's remarkably, that would actually get worse in a trade like that I described. But it'll be something like that, where they get a couple of pieces that are so-so with bad contracts from a team that's just looking at Westbrook and saying, all right, little phrase, close your eyes and think of England. It's like, we're going to close our eyes for 3 months and say, when we wake up, Russell Westbrook will be off our team and we'll have $47 million in cap space to play with in the summer of 2023.
It is amazing. For as smart as LeBron is, the Westbrook move was really it was just a bad fit.
And everybody knew it. Like, it's not one, like, we in the media get a lot wrong. No question about it. I just said the Knicks bet, bad. Sorry to all the people that paid attention to me, 4 months ago on that one. But everybody knew that Westbrook was the wrong move. Everybody knew he was not going to become a spot-up shooter. Everybody knew he was a net negative without the ball in his hands. He doesn't change. Like, he tweaks a little bit, and to his credit, has done that with James Harden, with Bradley Beal, has made efforts. Those coaching staffs there have told me he's made efforts to do that, but he's not going to become Jason Kidd at a later stage of his career, become this high-level shooter that can play off the ball. Everybody knew that. Meanwhile, Buddy Hield, for all of his warts, 40+% three-point shooter, built to play off LeBron James. Colin, name me one shooter who has struggled playing off LeBron James in history. I mean, Kyle Korver got like 3 more years on his career because he played off of LeBron James. Like, how much money has this guy made? It's just incredible. So, like, it's one of those things where when everything kind of came out, and the Kings were the first, I talked to people in Sacramento, like, we thought we had a deal. Like, we thought this was done. This was 11th hour. We thought Buddy Hield was going. Kuzma coming back. Like, it was all set. It's one of those things when I realized all the things that were in play, I'm like, what am I missing here? Like, where am I going to look stupid? Like, at what point am I like, that's what I missed there. Pelinka was right. LeBron was right. Russ can do this. Nothing told me that. I talked to Frank Vogel about this. I was like, before the season, I'm like, Frank, like, why am I wrong? Why is everybody wrong that this is going to work? He just believed, Russ, take pressure off LeBron. He's going to be a better shooter than you think. Like, none of it made any sense then, and it makes even less sense now.
Yeah. Well, listen, man, personnel's hard for Danny Ainge. Personnel's hard for the best GMs in this league. Players aren't built for it. You know what I mean? Seriously, it's so, I've always said, if I didn't do this, I'm not qualified. But if I had given football as much effort for 40 years as I have broadcasting and could be an NFL GM, it's my dream job beyond what I do. I have missed Bill Polian, the legends. You whiff constantly in personnel. So it's just one of those things where you think like Brady knows that Gronk would fit in Tampa. They work together. But, man, you just don't know. And the other thing is, Westbrook was loved by Harden. He's loved by LeBron. You ever notice all those guys? They all love each other. Doesn't mean they can play together. I never bought into Westbrook and Harden. They're boys. They love each other. Their games don't work at all.
Worked in Oklahoma City, but an entirely different situation and an entirely different James Harden. It just was never going to happen in Los Angeles. And to this day, like, I want to either write or read like a detailed TikTok of everything that happened, like a oral history of those like 2 days in LA where this all kind of came together, where a deal with Hield was vetoed and a deal with Westbrook seemed like the right thing to do. You're right. Personnel, it's tough. I mean, I spent months clobbering Brad Stevens for some of the deals that he made. I thought he should have traded Marcus Smart. I thought he should have matched the offer Devin Fournier. I thought he shouldn't have given up a first-round pick with Kemba Walker. That all worked out. So oftentimes GMs know what they're doing, but this was one of those situations where it's like, there's no way this is going to work. Everybody knows it, but you. Why and what are we missing in this dynamic?
Yeah, I think players really, really like Westbrook. They like him.
They do. He's an excellent teammate. And more than that, with LeBron, you watch Westbrook from afar, you go up against him in the playoffs, and you see how hard he plays. And I got to believe somewhere in LeBron's mind, like LeBron's going, all right, I can work with that. Like, I can mold that. Like, and you saw in the offseason, he was working out with Westbrook all the time. There's had to have been a part of LeBron that's saying, look, I can be the one that helps him make that turn, that makes that evolution to a different form of game. I think there maybe was a bit too much arrogance on the part of LeBron to believe that, because it clearly hasn't worked out.
Well, it's like when people have affairs, they choose the opposite of what they're married to. So Anthony Davis shows up out of shape, not really committed, doesn't really give you great minutes regularly. I think LeBron looked at AD and thought, okay, Westbrook will fill in on the passion side and the commitment side. He's flawed, but I got AD. He's the worst kind of flawed. I'm not even sure if he's there every night. And I do think part of LeBron was like, okay, this star's not working. That guy will fill the gaps. Like, there's part of the psychology. LeBron's smart. Part of it is he was trying to put a Band-Aid or solve his other co-stars' issues.
Yeah. You know, what he probably thought, and look, this is something I've been kind of working on and looking into the last, couple of months off and on. Like why Westbrook hasn't become a better shooter is one of the most bizarre stories I can think of, because he is a guy that works. Like, he does work hard in the offseason. I would talk to Oklahoma City people about this, because like, not only is he not improving as a shooter, he's getting worse in many areas. Like, look at his free throw numbers over the last 4 or 5 years. They've started to dip into that kind of 60% range. You just don't see that from players. Like, as they go on and they get better coaching and they work on specific things, their skills, they improve in those areas. What somebody in Oklahoma City said to me, and this stuck with me, was that when you look out on the floor and see Russell Westbrook, you see this like ball of energy, hyper athletic guy that can do anything when he's out there. It's remarkable, even at age, 32 now, that he can do all the things that he can do. They would say to me, you have no idea how much work he does right up until the opening tip to make sure his body's able to do that. And that continues in the offseason. He spends so much time working on his body, making sure his body is able to do the things that he wants it to do, that it comes at the cost of improving your skill level, of doing the things you need to do to get better in those key areas. So I thought that was interesting, that like he just spends so much time, all the things you do before a game, like stretching and different weight workouts and everything before a game to get ready and go out there between the lines, that he just hasn't been able to commit as much as he should have on improving his outside shot.
Well, Chris Paul is not nearly as athletic, but is one of the great mid-range shooters ever. Derrick Rose, John Wall, Russell Westbrook, absurdly, cartoonishly athletic, start relying on athleticism, and they don't work on their shot. Like, it's not that they don't work hard. To your point, do they work on the wrong thing? Iverson, by the way, like when you start looking at the guards who are pretty good shooters, there's a lot of these guys, like it's the Chris Paul thing where he's athletic, but that's not his fastball. That's his off-speed pitch, his IQ, his court leadership, his kind of dogged, in-your-face personality. I'm reaching here, but there is a history of these hyper-athletic point guards who can just never get it right shooting. Wall, Derrick Rose, and Westbrook are three that just jump out to me.
Yeah, and like the difference with Wall and to a lesser degree, or not Wall, Rose, and to a lesser degree Chris Paul, is that at certain points in their careers, they accepted that their athleticism wasn't what it once was. Like Derrick Rose, who was as big a high flyer as anyone before the leg injuries, accepted the reality of his situation, and at that time decided and worked to become better at other areas, become a much better perimeter shooter, become a much better half-court floor general. Chris Paul, he was never on that level of Westbrook and Wall and Rose, but like tweaked his game a lot to be more stationary, grounded, not going to the basket, using that floater a lot more often, using that one spot in the floor that he loves, that kind of elbow extended, to make that fadeaway jump shot, perfecting that, because you didn't need to be athletic for that. Wall's a good example because he's on a Westbrook level. Like right now, Wall is still trying to get back to being the John Wall we saw in his prime in Washington. That's not going to happen. He's not going to be the fastest guy in the NBA anymore. He's not going to be the most athletic guy on the floor when he's out there. Can he make that transition? We haven't seen him this year, but when he comes back, can he make that transition to a reasonable three-point shooter who is more efficient than the half court than he used to be?